Welcome back to the Lars Larson Show. Pleasure to be with you on a Monday. And our thanks to our friends in Washington, D.C. at the Federation for American Immigration Reform after last week's broadcast from the nation's capital. And, of course, not expecting that we would find out the things we found out about what the left has planned between now and Thanksgiving. And on that note, as we watch the effects or the after effects of the intelligence agencies attacking the president they're supposed to serve, I thought we'd bring on Tom Fitton from Judicial Watch, the president of that organization. Tom, welcome back to the program.
Lars, good to be with you again.
So JW has found out that the FBI may have actually sent somebody or planned to send somebody into the Oval Office to spy on the president?
Oh, actually, it was the Justice Department senior guy for Russia, Rod Rosenstein, the number 2 at the Justice Department, and who was running the Russian investigation because Sessions recused himself. According to this FBI memo written by none other than Andrew McCabe,
wow,
Rosenstein offered to wear a wire. And McCabe's response in the memo supposedly was written right after the meeting was, I'll check with my team and see if we can get it done.
Now, he tried to play that off as a joke, didn't he?
Yes, and of course he hasn't testified directly about it, and this is contemporaneous, and I understand Andrew McCabe was writing a memo to cover his own backside too, but look, if he understood it as a joke, obviously he wouldn't have offered to go check with his team about how to do it. Remember, at that meeting also was discussed the effort to overthrow the president by invoking the 25th Amendment, and of course appointing a special counsel. So you have the coup discussions outlined in these documents, and no wonder the deep staters would rather talk about the Ukraine canard than the coup that was happening here in Washington.
I mean, because, Tom, that's really what we're talking about. When we talk about a coup in a lot of banana republics, we're talking about somebody who gets together a bunch of guys with guns and they take over the country from the people who are sitting in charge. But in this country, we're a modern, sophisticated, industrialized country. So here we have people try to take over using technology and information instead of bullets and guns.
You know, if 2 generals were talking about wearing a wire and removing the president because they didn't like that he had fired their boss and their friend, well, there'd be no doubt what you call it. But here, as you point out, you've got the modern day equivalent of that in terms of 2 senior law enforcement officials at the federal level thinking of ways to remove the president of the United States and to spy on him in the Oval Office using a wire. My gosh, that's a crisis that took place, and that no one's been held fully accountable for it. And you notice this with the Ukraine argument. They don't want the president to investigate what went on. It's now expanded from Ukraine to the president wasn't allowed to make entrees for his attorney general as he was investigating this spying operation on candidate Trump and then President Trump. It's incredible. They want to criminalize investigations of this activity.
Well, and tell me this, because I want to get over to Biden and Ukraine and those issues, because Judicial Watch has also filed a lawsuit for those documents. It seems as though, and I had somebody last week tell me, well, Lars, they're going to investigate this. If they do, they have to look in to the relationship between Vice President Joe Biden, Ukraine, and then the relationship that put his son on the board of directors, making an extraordinary amount of money on something that he knew absolutely nothing about. And a friend of mine who's in politics said, well, they'll have to look into that. And I said, no, they won't. And he said, well, why do you believe that? If they're looking into one, they have to look into the other. I said, look at Robert Mueller. He managed to investigate all of an alleged conspiracy supposedly involving the president in cahoots with the Russians to win an election and change the outcome. And they managed to ignore another candidate named Hillary Clinton, who paid money through a Seattle law firm to a company called Fusion GPS that had disturbing ties with the FBI to hire a foreign national, a British former secret agent, to get information from Russian government officials that was used to try to change the outcome of the election. And Mueller managed to investigate one of them thoroughly for a couple of years, coming up with nothing, while ignoring the other one altogether. So I don't believe that they won't try to investigate Trump and Ukraine while ignoring Biden or the Bidens.
Well, I think you and your friend are both right, and it depends on who the they is in terms of investigating. Rudy Giuliani has highlighted that, look, he was trying to defend his client investigating the coup cabal against him, and he ran into this Biden issue. We already know that the FBI was refusing evidence on the Biden-Ukraine connection. So you're right there, but they're fearful that won't work, and that there will be an honest Attorney General like Barr who will have a broad view as to what needs to be investigated. And so they're terribly nervous about it. That's why they've concocted this Ukraine smear, which in my view is just a criminal leak gussied up as a whistleblower complaint to protect the co-conspirators involved in passing along this classified information into the public domain improperly.
I'm talking to Judicial Watch President Tom Fitton. Last issue I wanted to get to with you, I mean, at least for this visit, is Hillary Clinton and Benghazi. We've just passed a couple of weeks ago, the anniversary of the murders of 4 American citizens in Benghazi, Libya. And I think the real malfeasance of Hillary Clinton when she was Secretary of State, with the Pentagon saying we've got resources we can spin up and send to rescue these people, not only the 4 who died, but the 30 who suffered some pretty grievous wounds in that attack and were finally extricated from all that Hillary Clinton has never faced any kind of justice on this, and now she's trying to avoid questioning under oath about some of the evidence that Judicial Watch has dug up. Tell me more about that.
Well, a federal court authorized discovery into the Clinton email issue and how Benghazi is tied to it. The court was asking the reasonable question, was the State Department and Hillary Clinton perhaps hiding these emails from the American people because they were nervous about what they might disclose about Benghazi? And plus, he obviously wants basic information about the Clinton emails answered. So part of that is he granted us new discovery or additional discovery because we were uncovering more questions about the cover-up. And he authorized us to at least request Mrs. Clinton's deposition. She obviously opposed it last week. By the way, the Justice Department didn't want us asking any additional questions. So it goes back to our earlier discussion. There is a deep state that's still protecting Hillary Clinton. So the court's going to decide soon whether she has to be deposed under oath about these issues. The Clinton email scandal is a scandal still, in the sense that the Justice Department had a scam investigation of her, a fraudulent investigation of her, in the sense that it was more designed to protect her from the consequences of her conduct rather than do a serious investigation. The Justice Department has yet to do much in that area at all. In fact, they're defending her in our litigation. So that's the issue. And you'll notice Hillary Clinton's been making a lot more noise about her emails recently. It'll be interesting to see how the court responds.
All right, one last thing, Tom, and I want your observation on the fact that the CIA apparently in the last, 15 months or so decided to change the rule on whistleblowers and say you no longer have to have direct firsthand knowledge of these things, which means anybody can make up almost anything and throw it in a complaint these days.
Well, maybe we should start filing whistleblower complaints.
Now, that would be wild, because you could understand why you would have a rule, and apparently it was in place for a long time, saying you have to have firsthand knowledge. This guy writes, I guess the New York Times says it's a guy at CIA who wrote the complaint. This guy writes up a complaint that when you read the transcript, doesn't at all match what actually happened. But it managed to get the ball rolling on something that Nancy Pelosi thinks is going to end with impeachment before Thanksgiving.
Well, there needs to be an investigation on how that complaint came about, because I believe it's not really a valid whistleblower complaint. We've worked with whistleblowers for 20 years here. I know what whistleblowers do. I know what the law is generally on this issue, and this does not rise to the level of a whistleblower complaint. This, in fact, is a leak disguised as a whistleblower complaint, and when you look at it, it's someone who disagrees with the president as a matter of policy. Forget about whether it was first or second hand. The whistleblower law doesn't apply to someone in the bureaucracy.
That's right. Tom Fitton from Judicial Watch.